Hello, I'm Professor Wayne Visser, and it's a great pleasure to be with you today at this conference and to speak to you a little bit about how we can move from breakdown in society to breakthrough, especially by creating integrated value. And what's that all about? Well, I'm going to share a few thoughts with you, and let me begin by sharing my screen. So, what we could do is start with some facts and figures about the state of our world. And what you see here is that if we pick the number 5, 5 is in fact the number of risks in the top risks identified by the World Economic Forum, all of which are environmental in 2020 for the first time. We look at 41, this is the number of people who have, the percentage who have left a job because of bullying due to the fact that they are categorized as LGBT. Almost half of that community remains closeted at work. 60, this is the proportion of vertebrate populations, so wildlife species that have declined since 1970. And 40% of insect species are either in decline or could die out in the coming years. 257, this is the number of years it would take for us to close the gender pay gap. So the gap between what women and men get paid, in fact, that gap has been going up in the last 10 years and remains today at 40%. 820, this is the number of natural disasters in the last year, in 2019, compared with 250 in 1980. So it's been going up and claiming the lives of 9,000 people. 27 million, this is a moving target really, but the number of cases of COVID-19 early in September and reaching nearly 900,000 deaths now and increasing daily. 71 million, this is the number of people who've been forcibly displaced worldwide. 13 million newly displaced, being forced to leave their homes. In fact, it's 37,000 additional people per day being forced from their homes. 1 billion, this is the number of animals that have been killed or are threatened as a result of Australia's wildfires in the last months. And those fires emitted as much carbon into the atmosphere as the normal for a single year of Australia. 150 billion, this is how much was lost, the effect on the economy of the 143 tropical storms that affected the world in 2019, which Hurricane Lorenzo was one of the biggest. And note that only a third of these are insured, so 2/3 of people left without any help whatsoever. And finally, 1.7 billion, these are the number of people who've been affected by cyber attacks in the past year or so, including 1.1 billion Indians, 540 million Facebook users, and 100 million Capital One customers. So this gives us an idea that we're living in a very volatile society, very challenging times. And when you ask the world's leaders, as they do every year at the World Economic Forum, what they believe the biggest risks are in any given year, you can see how that's changed over time. Some of the issues we've already spotlighted appear there, but there you see in 2020 for the first time, all 5 of the top risks are environmental risks. Now, why do we show this? It's really to make the point that our global society is facing various shocks to the system. And what our system scientists tell us is when we get those shocks to the system, only one of 2 things can happen. Either the system breaks down, it basically falls apart or becomes less functional, or it breaks through, it becomes more highly functioning, more organized. The question then is, where is our society breaking down, and can we turn those breakdowns into breakthroughs? Well, there are 5 areas of breakdown. The first one is disruption. And disruption is all of those catastrophes that we see, the crises, of course, SARS before, but now we see COVID-19 as being a good example. Could be industrial accidents, could be climate-related disasters or shocks to the economy, like the global financial crisis in past years. And the point we've made already is these disasters, these crises are increasing. The cost is substantial, and that the number of people being affected by these crises is very significant. So this is the first area in which society is not functioning at its best. The second area of breakdown then is disparity. And here we're really looking at inequality. And in fact, the absolute gap between high income and low income countries since 1960 has gone up by 135%. Within companies, equality has also gone down. So the average CEO to worker pay in America has gone from 20 to 1 in 1965 to 300 to 1 today. And the top 1% captured twice as much global income growth as the bottom 50% since 1980. So no wonder inequality is going up in nearly every country in the world. The third area then of breakdown is degradation. These, of course, are environmental issues, whether it's over-extraction of resources, pollution, as you see there, or deforestation, or the issue of plastics, as you see when you cut open a seabird. You see that in that picture. And so we've made the point then that species are declining at an alarming rate. Climate change is affecting our ecosystems, but also will affect our economy to the tune of $12 trillion by 2050. And plastics is not just an issue for wildlife, but also for us, because microplastics are getting into our food chain. They're in 9 out of 10 every sample of salt, of table salt from around the world, and in every type of fish, no matter where they are fished in the world today. The fourth area of breakdown is disconnection. This is really about inequality and access to technology. 4 billion people still don't have access to the internet. 6 billion don't have high-speed internet. 2 billion don't have a mobile phone. 500 million live outside of areas with mobile signals. And the flip side is also true in highly connected societies. We're in danger of being disconnected once more, this time by the robots. So a quarter of jobs are at high risk of being automated, another 70% in a medium risk category. And the last area of breakdown then is discontent. Here we're really talking about lack of health and well-being. That can be diseases, infectious diseases like we're seeing now with COVID-19, but don't forget that mostly still the way we're dying today is through non-communicable diseases. This is roughly 70% of all deaths. These are lifestyle diseases linked to stress, linked to our diets, so obesity and diabetes, strokes, cancers. These are all things related to how we live, what we eat, and the toxicity of our environment. And then don't forget about mental health as well. 1 in 10 people suffer from anxiety today, and that's a number also that's going up. In the worst case, of course, it leads to suicide or depression. So these are all areas of breakdown, and you can see they relate to different parts of our global system. And the question now is, can we shift those? And in particular, is business responding to these? Well, when we ask sustainability experts around the world, what's the contribution that business has made, the private sector, to sustainable development since the original Rio Earth Summit of 1992, the answer is not very good. So third from the bottom in terms of our belief on the contribution, the positive impact of business. Of course, even worse, you see national governments right at the bottom there. So how have we seen then an evolution in how business responds to these issues? Well, various concepts coming over the time, starting with CSR, corporate social responsibility in the 1970s, the idea of stakeholders, those interested and affected parties in the 1980s, the environment coming onto the agenda there, corporate governance in the 1990s, sustainability in terms of the triple bottom line, that's people, planet, profit, that was in the 1990s. Accountability, which is a lot about how you report on your performance in environment, society, and governance impacts. And climate change really coming onto the agenda in the 2000s. And really a lot of talk in the 2010s about value creation, because it's not clear yet that business is creating overall a positive impact in society, or at least it creates value in one area and destroys value in another area. And when we look at trying to make change happen, we see that especially in sustainability, this is very difficult. So change programs, 81% of them in sustainability, the companies just settled for mediocre performance or dilution of value. So what would we mean by creating value then and integrating that value? Well, you see it's mainly, if you look at the survey of global experts around the world on sustainability, it's about integration into the core business model, into the strategy, the targets. It's aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals. It's about integrating with values and purpose. Your communication, your products, all of these issues are about making it core to your business, not making it philanthropic, something like charity on the side. If you look at the companies that are doing this the best, you can recognize some names there, probably Unilever, Patagonia, IKEA, and so on. So we can take some guidance from those companies. So these are areas of breakdown. The question is, can we turn them into breakthrough? And for each area of breakdown, there are whole areas of the economy that are about bringing solutions. So the resilience economy for tackling disruption, the access economy for tackling disparity, the circular economy for degradation, the digital economy for disconnection, and the well-being economy for discontent. And within each of these areas, we see pathways to innovation. We see solutions that are really helping us to move forward. So what I'd like to do now is take you through examples of each of these areas of innovation and bring it alive for you. If we start with secure innovation in a resilience economy, we take an example here in the port of Antwerp. They're using drones now in order to inspect this wide area. Remember, this port is 30 kilometers long. It's a massive area that needs to be inspected, and they inspect for levels of pollution, for any accidents or emergencies that might be occurring, any oil spills, for example. They simulate even, these are autonomous drones, by the way, so they're flying themselves. And if there is an emergency, they're able to divert from that and report back, of course. So a very smart way to use technology to help us deal with some of these risks. Another example is a company called Ushahidi. When the Haiti earthquake struck in 2010, they created an app that allowed people around the world to crowdsource and to translate the text messages that were coming out from the victims, which were in the language of Creole, and they needed to be translated into a language that the aid agencies could understand so they could get emergency supplies to where they were needed. And they did that in the space of just a few days when the earthquake hit. Or you take an example like this Ford Smart Cap. This is actually to do with safety. So truck drivers, of course, the biggest hazard there is that they may fall asleep on the road. And this is a smart cap that will actually alert them or buzz them. It monitors the senses and the eye movements and will give them a little wake-up call if they're starting to fall asleep. Shared innovation in an access economy. So here an example could be Plastic Bank. This works with poor communities in different parts of the world. And they collect plastic and they get paid for that plastic. And then it gets turned into products and the products are sold. And so when they are sold, they get a label called social plastic. So I know that I'm buying a product that has also helped poor people to be more included in the economy and to benefit from this, besides, of course, cleaning up an environmental issue. Or an example like Hello Tractor, this is basically Uber for tractors. And if I have a tractor and my farming neighbor doesn't, this is especially in East Africa where this operates, then they can sign up to the app and they can use my tractor when I'm not using it. And everybody wins. I get a small payment. They get included in the economy. Or an example like Winners, and this is weather risk index based services. And this is really about giving weather-related information in the supply chains, especially in food, where more than half of disruptions to those supply chains are as a result of storms and droughts. So in order to get the best information to where it's needed to anticipate and prepare for those disruptions. Sustainable innovation in the circular economy. Here we could look at an example like Amazon that's made an order of 100,000 electric delivery vans by 2030, starting to go fully electric. We can look at an example like Umicore. This is the largest precious metals recycler in the world, operates mainly in Belgium. And all of your phones and your tablets and your computers end up in a place like this where they extract all the precious metals and they recycle them. Or you can look at an example like DHL, reducing carbon emissions by 30% by 2025, and you see some of these little innovations coming in how they deliver over the last mile with these electric delivery bikes. If we look then at smart innovation in a digital economy, we could look at a company like Planet Labs. What they do is image the world every day in high definition in order that we could start to see changes. You could see deforestation happening, illegal logging. You could see urban sprawl, so city slums that are growing day by day, or where there are fires that need to be put out. So the more information we have and the more up to date it is, the more we can respond effectively. Or a company, a startup like Circularize, what they do is they take plastics and they want to make them circular, meaning that they can go back into production after we've finished with them. And what they do is they use blockchain technology, and they also inject artificial DNA into the plastic so that we can identify exactly what type of plastic it is and how it needs to be recycled. Another example here is Provenance. This is a British company that really looks at supply chains, and again, using blockchain technology, allows us to track and trace exactly how the products have moved, whether those are jeans or fish or gold, in fact, how it's moved right from the beginning, right to when it arrives to you as a consumer, and also how it needs to be disposed of when you're finished with it. If we look at satisfying innovation in a well-being economy, here's an example of Hewlett-Packard, HP. So they have these shipping containers, which they kit out with all the latest medical equipment. These can be shipped to anywhere in the world, to a village in India, for example. Then a local health worker would be able to take your heart rate, take a blood sample, and then they connect with doctors virtually over the internet in order to do diagnoses. Or we could look at an example like these smart street lamps of General Electric that they're rolling out, especially in the United States. These street lamps can automatically detect if there's been an accident or there's been a shooting or some other kind of crisis, and they automatically dial 911 and get emergency response there. They also, by the way, monitor pollution and traffic flows, so you can also find out where the free parking is. And then if you stay on the same theme and you look at autonomous driving, the example perhaps best being Tesla, who's most advanced in this. Already with the semi-autonomous driving, the autopilot of Tesla already. This is coming on near 10 times as safe as human drivers. When we go fully autonomous, they expect that to be 100 times safer than human drivers. So all of these innovations are helping us to break through, and this is how you see it all together. The response going from the breakdown or the transformation triggers to these areas of the economy where we see innovation. And of course, what we're really looking for, what integrated value means, is coming with solutions that have a positive impact in more than one of these 5 areas at a time. And I put up here again the example of Tesla, because I think they're a very good example where we could say that they probably tick many of the boxes. Here's just one example of them responding to the Puerto Rico hurricane, and very quickly they were able to get solar panels installed, get the lights back on, prevent the spread of disease. Of course, it's renewable as well, and so it ticks many of the boxes. And this is really the idea of integrated value. So coming near to the end now, I just wanted to make the point that if we do these things and we do them right, then we have business benefits as well. So whether it's better alignment, improved reputation, growth opportunities, look at some of the areas that have been increasing over time as a driver for sustainability, things like attracting and retaining employees. So there is definitely a business case for this if it's done well. Of course, we're being challenged all the time, and not only by people like Greta Thunberg and her climate strikes, but in general by the situations we face, by the crises we face. The more we know, the more we realize that we have a lot to do. And so to close, I'd like to just finish with some poetic words, a poem I wrote called Change the World. I use the image here, by the way, of flocking birds because this is how change really happens. If you see how birds move together and you apply that to human beings, some experiments have been done showing that only between 5 and 25% of people need to be moving in a common direction for the whole crowd, for the total population to move in that same direction. So this is important for us as change agents. So let's change the world. Let's shift it. Let's make it. Let's shake it and remake it. Let's rearrange the pieces, the patterns in the maze, the reason for our days in ways that make it better, in shades that make it brighter, that make the burden lighter because it's shared, because we dared to dream and then to sweat it, to make our mark and not regret it. Let's plant a seed and humbly say, I changed the world today. Let's change the world, let's lift it. Let's take it and awake it. Let's challenge every leader, the citadels of power, the prisoners in the tower. The hour of need's upon us. It's time to raise our voices, to stand up for our choices, because it's right, because we fight for all that's just and fair, for a planet we can share. Let's join the cause and boldly say, we'll change the world today. Let's change the world, let's love it, let's hold it and unfold it. Let's redesign the future, the fate of earth and sky, the existential why. Let's fly to where there's hope, to where the world is greener, where air and water's cleaner, because it's smart to make a start to fix what we have broken, our children's wish unspoken. Let's be the ones who rise and say, we changed the world today. Thank you.